Welcome to VET S.O.S Veteran Educational Program Spotlight. Remember, don't drown to see a transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. We're brought to you by the Who You Know Network and proud members of the Parade Deck community. As always, I'm here with Dr. Hira. How you doing today, Dr. Hira?
I'm doing very well. I'm excited to learn about a new resource today that I didn't have any familiarity with. And this is why I love doing this, right? Everybody can take something away from every episode that we have.
We're going to change the title to Stump Dr. Hira.
Yeah.
All right. Today we're sitting down with Chad Rairie, Executive Director for ValorAcademic. Chad is a veterans education advocate, a U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, a Dartmouth College graduate. Can't talk today. And a Fortune 100 consultant. He formerly served as a senior policy advisor to the U.S. Department of Defense and worked on veteran policies in the U.S. Senate. Chad has served in various capacities with multiple veteran nonprofits, including an advisory role to the Ivy League Veterans Council. Never heard of that, but that sounds fascinating too. He's been assisting veterans with achieving their educational goals since 2014, and in 2022, he founded ValorAcademic with the goal of ensuring college success for veterans. Quite the journey there, Chad. That's just fantastic. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I've been all over.
Well, the best part is I'm sure it's all played a factor in where you are today and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So that's just outstanding. So let's jump right in and talk about your military transition real quick. How did that go?
Yeah, left the military in 2012. I was a kind of a college dropout, went to the military to kind of turn things around, and then did a couple deployments to Afghanistan, got out in 2012. Went to a junior college in Texas and then transferred to Dartmouth College. And, I think at that point, everyone's like, how'd you get in there? What are you doing? And I started working with other vets who were ambitious and wanted to go to top schools. And I did that informally for about 6 to 7 years before founding ValorAcademic. So
fantastic. I'm sure there's a lot of those questions that pop. How did you get in there?
Yeah. Networking.
I absolutely love that, Dr. Hira. How are you doing today? You got some hard-hitting questions. I know you do to learn more about this organization. So let's jump into it.
Yes, I was very excited to read about the program itself. So could you outline what that support looks like? What are you offering to the veterans?
Yeah, of course. So we are a for-profit. I always put that out there first. So there are a ton of amazing veterans nonprofits that work in the space, and I'd love to support all of them. I want to see them succeed. I don't want to compete with them for funding. So we are a for-profit. There is a fee, but I've never turned away a veteran who couldn't afford it. So if you reach out and there's a monetary issue there, we'll work with you to get you the advice you need. But essentially, in our years of work, we found out that most veterans are dropping out from poor selection. So every veteran who comes through the door, we work with them on what are their goals for their education, what are they trying to study, where do they want to get to, and then what is their current situation. So we provide them with a survey, we do an intake interview with them, and we just look at what they're trying to accomplish and where they're trying to accomplish that. And then we assess based on that and give them footsteps to move forward with whatever that plan is.
Awesome. So more tailored advising from not just, the application, but it sounds like maybe thereafter once they are off at the institution.
Yeah. So starts with selection and helping them pick that school. And, I made the mistake of applying to like 30 colleges when I went to school and got accepted to a bunch and denied by others and wasted a ton of money. And so we talk about, fee waivers. We talk about what institution's actually a good fit for you, because not all of them are. Which one has the major that you want to go through? And so, we talk through all those steps. And then if you're married with kids and you have a spouse, can your spouse work in that area? Can your kids go to a decent school? If you're going to Columbia, how are you going to afford private school? Because most people don't want to do the public school system. So we kind of talk through holistically all the things that set them up for success in college so that they don't drop out. And then we work with them once they're there. Here's how to take notes. Here's how to engage with professors. Here's how to, effective study habits in the library and how to schedule classes so that you can actually get some studying done in between them. And so we try to take a holistic approach so that they succeed.
I love that. The taking a look at even the family aspect of it, because
Yeah.
one thing I didn't even think about was, what about if you got a family with kids, and what are you going to do with them? And, especially if you're going to relocate to go to school. So that's fantastic. And I just want to jump in and remind the audience that it doesn't matter to us if you're for-profit, nonprofit, whatever. We're about educating and bringing resources forward. So it's up to the audience to really find that resource that's best for them, and that's what we want to do. We want to provide options and make sure that they understand that there are things out there that you can use, programs you can use, and but not absolutely. Just love the fact that you're looking at the holistic picture, because that's really important, especially for someone maybe who's never gone to school. The process itself can be confusing, and then if you're talking about relocating to go to a school, there's a whole lot that goes into that, and that's just crazy. So do you focus on a certain level, like bachelor's degree or graduate, or is it run the whole gamut? How's that work?
Yeah, so we work with the whole gamut. We've sent veterans to top tier schools, whether those are Ivies or some of their peer schools like UChicago. We've also done MBA program applications with them and kind of walk through who has a GMAT waiver, what are the things to separate different colleges, how do you pick between them, specifically on transfers as well. So the whole transfer process is complicated, and I went through that myself, where you don't get all your transfer credits at certain schools, and none of them are going to commit to exactly how many you're going to get before you get there. And so how do you pick, if your options are Stanford and Dartmouth, how do you pick which school to go to? And so we work through kind of all of those different processes. The other aspect that we do is we work with the colleges on how they interact with veterans, and what are their processes and how does that work for the veteran, and are there things that can be changed there to increase graduation rate?
You struck a nerve, man. You struck a nerve. I was a student at the University of Tennessee, which I'm a fan of and have been for years. But I was a student for a whole weekend, and they were only going to transfer half of my 50 credits or so and make me a freshman again. So I left, and but yeah, that still cuts a little deep. I could have been an alumni, but it wasn't going to play that game. So
it can be brutal.
Yep.
Yes, I'm not military, but I was a transfer student, and yes, knowing how your credits are going to go to another place is very important. So I'm glad you all are covering that, because I think that is one of the biggest hiccups. I mean, even if you're not a transfer student, just understanding how you should be looking at how they're taking your JST. Because again, even if you're not a transfer, you're probably bringing in some type of credit experience that should be getting applied to your academic program.
Yeah. And sometimes it's worth it to lose a few credits to go to the right school. So I don't advocate, just take the highest amount of credits. That doesn't always do the most for you. But I certainly don't want you to waste time and waste GI Bill benefits if you can get some extra credits. So
definitely. And you talked a little bit about the partnership with the schools. What does that look like in terms of the work you're doing with the institutions?
Yeah, so for the colleges, primarily we look at the graduation rate. And what I was surprised to find is that most institutions I've connected with don't solidly track the actual graduation rate of veterans. And for the Ivies and some of the higher end institutions, it's because they have 100% graduation rate in News and World Report, and they want to keep that. And so if a veteran doesn't graduate, that can impact that. And so they might use metrics to hide that. For most colleges, it's just the volume of veterans they have. And they go, we don't track every one of them to see if they graduate or not. And so when you look at the VA data, while it's not the greatest data out there, it says only 58% of veterans are graduating, which to me is surprising. But when I start talking to the institutions and that they don't track it, I kind of understand why, we see numbers like that.
That wouldn't surprise me as far as the numbers not being 100%, because like even in the service, they used to try to track people who were in school, but the only numbers that they could honestly track were the ones that were using the school program of
Right.
record within
Yeah.
the military. So, if you weren't going through there, which I wasn't when I was working on my master's degree, they had no idea I was in school. So I mean, I can see how numbers, especially being tracked by the military or the VA, could be off.
Yeah, and I think it's that, the VA's measure is how many benefits do we provide to how many veterans, and their metric is getting the funds out the door, and I understand that from their perspective. It's, how many veterans are we helping with the funds that we're issuing? But the piece that matters to me is, are those veterans graduating, or are they getting halfway through and dropping out? And if they did that, then are those benefits really being utilized? And are we seeing an improvement for the veteran community? And so that's something that, I care about and that I try to track and measure.
Right. And a lot of times, I mean, you talked about this holistic approach, right? At the end of the day, when I my background in higher ed and working with student veterans, a lot of times the reasons they were withdrawing had nothing to do with academics. There's a lot of other things at play. And so taking that holistic approach and saying, where are the other supports where we can maybe help you stay enrolled is very critical. I was curious, is your program only for the service member or veteran, or are military spouses allowed to use it? Who do you serve exactly?
So it's a for-profit service, everyone. So, if it's a military spouse that needs to transfer schools, which my sister was a military spouse, and I think she went to 4 different colleges by the time she got her master's. So, I saw the transfer problems that she had as a military spouse. If it's a dependent, we're happy to help you too. The process is a little different for obviously working with a dependent versus working with the veteran themselves, who might come with a family or different life experience, but all of the same things apply. And, if civilians wanted to take some of our advice and apply it to their life, they could. All of the things that we teach could be applied to anyone's education. It's just that we tailor it for veterans specifically.
I love that. As a military spouse, Marine wife here, my husband's still active. We bounce around and we're trying to piece together, education along the way, and it becomes just as difficult. What do I do with all these transcripts? How do I apply? What is going to be a good fit for me and the family? And, it's wonderful to hear that there is a resource supporting the family, because it is a lot harder to find. So this is really exciting to hear about.
Yeah, of course. Happy to help as many as we can. And like I said, having seen it firsthand with my sister, and tuition assistance and how that gets applied, and then, transfer of benefits for GI Bill for, can they use that for grad school and what that looks like. It's a complicated process. And I think we're all just trying to get through it together. And if I don't know something, it's super easy for me to reach out to a college and just say, hey, here's what I do. Here's what we're looking at. Here's an applicant that may be coming to your school. Let's have a conversation about how your process works. And I know all the lingo and the jargon to talk to the college that the veteran or the spouse might not know. And so those are things that, it's just repetition, learned experience from doing it so many times.
Wonderful.
And it's for the audience, don't discount the counseling piece and from any of these services. Because I did 3/4 of a master's degree in one program and realized about that time that it was not the right program for me. So I dropped out of it and I stopped it because to me, there was no point, even though I only had like 4 classes left to do. The degree itself wasn't going to be what I needed or wanted. But I didn't have that counseling up front that probably could have opened my eyes to where the program was going to lead. So it really, nothing against the school, nothing against it. It was the wrong program.
Right.
And, ultimately what turned out to be a waste of money in that sense, because I spent, a couple time and money, a couple years working on it and spending a lot of money on a program that it just wasn't what I needed. So finding that counseling ahead of time and talking to people and, adding that to your research, I think is very valuable.
Definitely.
So, excuse me. It's a heck of a day, man. I think that the pollen count's got to be up. I got to blame it on that.
I agree. I'm having the same trouble here. So
there you go. There you go. It's an East Coast thing today, I guess.
It is. has been wonderful information. Again, it's so exciting to learn about new resources. And I look forward to seeing how this continues in your networks of schools. And again, I love that it's holistic for not only the services, but the family unit. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you here today, Chad. Thank you for joining us on VET S.O.S. On behalf of the VET S.O.S. family, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You can find VET S.O.S. podcast on all your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, and all social media platforms. Make sure you subscribe and follow VET S.O.S. so you don't miss a thing. And remember, don't drown in the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S. lifeline.